Welcome to the Alberta Legislature for Thursday, May 17th, 1990. I'm David Carter, Speaker of the Assembly and member for Calgary-Egmont. Today, after question period, the House will be dealing with the procedural matters with regard to written questions and then motions for return. If there is time, then the member for Edmonton Centre will propose a motion dealing with the Medicare system within the province. And then at 4:30, the member for Edmonton Beverley will be dealing with a bill which relates to the matter of rent controls. This evening, the House will sit at 8 o'clock to deal with the Committee of Supply, Alberta Heritage Savings Trust Fund, Capital Projects Division estimates, and they will be dealing with matters related to forestry, lands, and wildlife. Let us pray. We give thanks to God for the rich heritage of this province as found in our people. We pray that native-born Albertans and those who have come from other places may continue to work together to preserve and enlarge the precious heritage called Alberta. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports. Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Culture and Multiculturalism, followed by the Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today in the public gallery are a group of 23 students, teachers, and adults from the Apostolic Christian Leadership Institute in the great, burgeoning, beautiful constituency of Edmonton Park Allen. With the group today are Dwight Croning, Lisa Schenk, and the Sabo girls, Joanne, Eileen, and Annette. Along with the 18 students, I'd ask them to rise and receive a warm welcome of the Assembly.
Premier, followed by the Solicitor General, I suppose, in this case.
Mr. Speaker, we're hiding that 275 pounds of brawn and muscle. Speaker, I'm very pleased to introduce to you and through you to the members of the legislature a second group of 52 students from the Forum for Young Albertans. They're from all across Alberta, and they are visiting Edmonton to learn about our political process. I understand that they have met with you, Mr. Speaker, and other members of the Assembly have also spoken to them. They're seated in both the members' gallery and the public gallery. They're accompanied by Forum staff, Blair Stoltz, Brian Tightmore, and Holly Strack, and Annette Clausen. I'd ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, it's always a pleasure to defer to the Premier. It's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to the Assembly 69 grade 6 students from the Chester Ronning School in Camrose. They're escorted by teachers Bob McClarty and Miss Jober. They're seated in the members' gallery and in the public gallery, and I'd ask that they stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Whitemud.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you a very special constituent from Whitemud, And the reason why this person is special is she is head of an organization called Our Future, which is an organization of students in grade 6 or 7. She's inviting the president of McDonald's to have lunch with her in Edmonton so she can explain what's wrong with their utensils. Ladies, through you, Mr. Speaker, I would ask all my colleagues here to give her the usual warm welcome as she rises, Kimberly Thompson, as she rises in the public gallery.
Edmonton Kingsway, followed by Calgary Glenmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you and members of the Assembly 15 students from the English as a Second Language students at the Alberta Vocational Centre. They are in the public gallery and they are accompanied by Cheryl Wilson, their teacher. I request that they rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Calgary Glenmore, then the Solicitor General, then Smoky River.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you two young ladies from California, Janice Voloshin and Chi Tosa Yamada, actually from Japan, Tokyo, Japan. Chi is studying political science at the University of California, San Diego, and Janice is studying pre-med, and they're visiting our city today, and I believe they're in the members' gallery. Would you please stand and receive this warm greeting from the Assembly?
Solicitor General.
Well, Mr. Speaker, nice event took place today in your chambers when at noon hour there were certain presentations made by the Canadian Parliamentary Association to the Girls' Parliament in Alberta. I am pleased to advise the House through yourself that one of the recipients was from my constituency, Susan Diaz-Agay, from the city of St. Albert. She is here. She is also a page of this assembly. So I'm pleased to introduce her through you to the House, together with her sister and her mother and dad, Mr. and Miss Diaz-Agay, who are in the gallery today. And would they please rise and receive the traditional welcome of the House.
Smoky River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another person who is recognized today is a constituent of Smoky River, one that we are all particularly proud of as Albertans, and more particularly as constituents of Smoky River. Joanne DeSheath has been an outstanding debater and has won awards for her debating abilities throughout the province and has competed nationally. Representing the Junior Forest Wardens, a representative of Henry Routier School in Hilaire, it's my pleasure to introduce Joanne DeSheath, and she is accompanied by Jerry Faulkner, the Assistant Chief Forest Warden for the province of Alberta. They're seated in your gallery, Mr. Speaker, and I would ask the House to recognize these two outstanding people.
Also seated in my gallery, honorable members, is Jennifer McKercher. She's the Tuxas recipient of the 1990 Commonwealth Parliamentary Association bursary. She's a member of the constituency of Calgary-Egmont. Accompanying her are her parents and her guest, Michael Wilson. And I ask that they rise and receive the welcome of the House.
Ministerial statements.
Research and Telecommunications.
Mr. Speaker, today marks a new milestone in the advancement of science and technology in this province. Later today, the membership of the Premier's Council on Science and Technology will be announced, and it will hold its first meeting under the chairmanship of our Premier. The Council brings together a broad spectrum of Albertans from all corners of our province, educators, scientists, manufacturers, and other committed men and women who will advise the government on science and technology matters, not strictly in the advanced technology area, but in its application to energy, agriculture, and the environment.
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, science and technology is the key to our ability to compete in world markets, to open new doors through discovery and innovation, and to provide new opportunities for Albertans, particularly our young people. As the Honourable Premier recently stated, the strategic application of science and technology are an integral part of Alberta's continued economic, social and environmental well-being, and this advisory council will be one of the tools the government can use to plan its strategies for the future.
Edmonton Highlands. Thank you.
Question period.
Mr. Speaker, I understand that this morning as he was entering Government House, the Premier was greeted by striking social workers, and he told them, I understand, that the only way that he could help was if they returned to their jobs. And I understand the following quote accurately reflects what he says. Quote, "I guarantee you that we'll be able to find a good contract." Close quote. Now, I remind you, Mr. Speaker, that the Premier also got a response from the crowd this morning, and they said in unison, "We can't trust you, Mr. Speaker." What they're really saying is that the government's track record betrays their real agenda in this regard, that the impasse is long overdue, and that the only way that the Premier is going to be able to solve this problem, or the government is going to be able to solve the problem, is to actually put something on the table, which they have not yet done, Mr. Speaker. I think what the workers made clear is that they're tired of vague promises. They don't believe the government anymore, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Premier is this: is he prepared now to step in, end this dispute, and address these specific issues by making a concrete offer that they can deal with?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I must say to the honourable member from Highlands is certainly a selective recall of what went on today as I was discussing matters with the social workers who were near Government House. I thought the discussion was in some ways helpful. I pointed out to them that I care about them, I care about the services that they provide in this province. Just listen. I told them that I have additional responsibilities, the responsibilities that I've sworn to uphold the laws of the province of Alberta, and that all members of the Assembly have, as a matter of fact, that they were breaking those laws. And I told them that I thought they were receiving bad advice, but that because I wanted to help them, they were making it impossible for me to help them because they were breaking the law, and that therefore what they should do is return to their work. If they do, I told them I felt very strongly that we would be able to negotiate a satisfactory solution to their concerns and to the concerns of the government. In other words, management coming together with employees and working it out across the table. That still is available. And I urge them to stop breaking the law and to go back to work. Many of them, Mr. Speaker, were thinking that it was strange that they were there breaking the law, and that they really want to go back to work, and I encourage them to do that.
Make them an offer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I note that the Premier did not deny the accuracy of the quote, which I repeat says, "I guarantee you that we'll be able to find a good contract." So my question to the Premier is this: seeing as how he was able to make a guarantee outside the Government House this morning, will he tell us why it is he's not prepared to make that known right now, what the deal is that he's offering these workers?
Mr. Speaker, again, the fallacy, I guess, or the inability of the honourable member to understand that it takes two people at the table to reach an agreement. And the government was at the table, prepared to be at the table, but we are not going to bargain with people who are breaking the law. Now, if I understand the member for Highlands' position, it is this: that if you break the law in Alberta, you will gain some benefit. Now, that cannot be the message that goes out in this province. And I'm sorry that the honourable member is of that persuasion, that what you should do in Alberta is be selective, pick some laws that you don't like, and break them. And that somehow that will gain you a benefit, and that cannot happen.
Mr. Speaker, what the Premier has said so far is no excuse for them refusing to negotiate an end to this strike. The fact of the matter is, it's this government that painted itself in the corner. The fact of the matter is, it's this government, that brought in the lousy labor laws that make criminals out of these people in the first place, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Premier, if he can't see, after 17 days of an impasse, that in fact the only way out of this mess is for him to put something on the bargaining table, tell them what that good contract consists of, and get this strike ended.
That's right. That's not the only way.
Mr. Speaker, I urge the honourable member to not become shrill on an important matter like this.
Right. Good.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sorry, I'm just trying to give the honourable member some advice, that's all. And I say again to her that we have discussed this matter many times in the Assembly over the past several weeks. And the government's position is clear. We care about these workers. We care about the services that they provide. We believe they have received bad advice. They're getting even worse advice from the NDP. And what we ask them to do is to stop breaking the laws of Alberta, come back to work. I have given orders to our negotiators to immediately negotiate the matters which they care about. The courts have given orders to them to go back to work. A judge of our Alberta court has made a ruling, which I gather the NDP have said defy and break, which is a terrible thing for lawbreakers, for lawmakers to countenance lawbreaker. And Mr. Speaker, so there is a solution. Go back to work, come back to the table, and we'll be able to solve this.
Agreed. Second main question, Edmonton Highlands.
Had it right. They said, we don't trust you, and they're right with this Speaker. I'd like to member for Edmonton Kingsway.
Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Treasurer introduced Bill 21, which is legislation that increases the province's borrowing power to a limit of $11.5 billion. An extra $2 billion on top of the $2 billion the year before and the several billions before that. This money will have to be borrowed at very high interest rates because of his federal cousin's high interest rate policy. Now my question to the Treasurer is, will he now admit that this new and costly borrowing totally shoots down his claim that his budgetary deficit would be $780 million? The fact is it's going to be closer to $2 billion, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting conclusion, Mr. Speaker. Certainly not at all in line with the budget presentation which we have provided to all Albertans. And of course, members have now had a chance over the past 25 days to thoroughly debate the estimates of the government, and I haven't heard anyone saying that our estimates are out of line. We've made a case, Mr. Speaker, to show that our budget will be around the $780 million deficit level this year. On course, Mr. Speaker, to a balanced budget in 91-92. And of course, as we have done in the last 5 years, Mr. Speaker, when unfortunately we have had to borrow in the capital markets to support the kinds of social objectives we have outlined in our budget, including education and health, Mr. Speaker. And in that way, Mr. Speaker, we've been able to gradually reduce our deficit from that disastrous level caused by oil and gas changes of about $3 billion down to $780 million, Mr. Speaker, and to a balanced budget next year, Mr. Speaker, as we have outlined. Now, what the member fails to point out, Mr. Speaker, is that, of course, we move it in these $2 billion intervals. It doesn't mean we're going to use it all. It just means we have to have the flexibility, Mr. Speaker. We have done this before. We think it's the right way to communicate with Albertans, to show that the deficit is under control, expenditures are under control, revenue is predictable, and now we're going to borrow just a bit more, Mr. Speaker, so we can ramp down to that balanced budget position next year. I know the opposition doesn't like to see us on course. They know they could never manage this economy, Mr. Speaker, and God help Alberta if they ever become elected again.
Mr. Speaker, it becomes clearer and clearer that the provincial treasurer fudged the books, and now he's got caught out by his own numbers. The treasurer also claimed in his budget, and it was just as much a fairy tale as some of the other figures, that the debt servicing cost would be $965 million. Now that he's admitted that the debt's going to be $11.5 billion, will he also admit that the debt servicing cost is going to be closer to $1.2 billion?
Thank you. Thank you, honourable member. It's a supplementary.
The member for Shrillsville is really on a roll today, Mr. Speaker.
Turn the camera on.
Mr. Speaker, when I give speeches across the province now, I no longer have any jokes in my speeches, Mr. Speaker. What I do, I simply observe the socialist opposition across the way and I report the facts. That brings the house down, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me say again, this is a bunch of nonsense. The people of Alberta know that we're on course to balancing our deficit. It's going to happen, Mr. Speaker. We're the only province in Canada with more assets and liabilities. We have the lowest tax regime in Canada, Mr. Speaker, and guess what? We haven't got a sales tax in this province and still have the highest level of services.
Hear, hear.
The opposition doesn't like it. They don't like to see the economy performing as well as it is, Mr. Speaker. They don't like to see the commitment to this province that Albertans have, Mr. Speaker, and that's why they're whining and crying across the way. The economy is working. This government's carrying out its commitment, and it's on course, Mr. Speaker.
He's from Shrillsville.
Yeah, and he's blown the Heritage Trust Fund in 4 years.
That's right.
This government's balanced budget plans are a total shambles. Yet this government and the treasurer steadfastly refused to raise the taxes for corporations and their rich friends, leaving the taxpayers, the individual taxpayers, to pick up the bundle. Will the treasurer admit that the additional cost of borrowing and debt servicing will be loaded onto Alberta families in the form of higher taxes and the lack of quality services?
Now, Mr. Speaker, if one of our members had asked that question, the opposition would be screaming about a puffball question. members know, as do all Albertans, that the level of services in this province are without question the best on aggregate in Canada, Mr. Speaker. We intend to maintain that objective. Now, just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we saw some interesting statistics, and I know my colleague, the minister responsible for unemployment or employment, will tell you about them if you ask them. Unemployment in this province, Mr. Speaker, is the second lowest in this country. Why is that? Because there's a new sense of confidence in this province, Mr. Speaker, and it's a result of that new confidence, it's a result of that new economic performance, Mr. Speaker, that all kinds of revenue are increased in this province, all kinds of revenue, including the tax revenue the member refers to. And I point out in our budget plan, Mr. Speaker, contrary to what he indicated, that in fact corporate taxes have gone up in this province as a result of this budget plan. And moreover, in 1987, Mr. Speaker, corporate taxes went up 35%. Now, his numbers are just all wrong in terms of his analysis. And I pointed it out consistently before, Mr. Speaker. Albertans know that the economy is ticking along very nicely. One of the best growth rates, retail sales per capita is highest, disposable income is working, and the private sector, that dirty word the socialists don't like, is responding with their dollars here in this province. And that's what makes them so upset. They haven't got anything to hang their hat on, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Glengarry, Leader of the Liberals.
Mr. Speaker, the provincial treasurer talks about being on course. The treasurer is on course to the largest debt in Alberta's history, and greater than any other debt of any other province. Mr. Speaker, Last year, the provincial treasurer was able to convince this assembly, mostly that side and nobody on this side, that he needed a $400 million cushion over and above the projected accumulated debt of the province of Alberta in terms of borrowing levels. This year we've started off with a $9 billion debt, and the documents that we're now reviewing that the treasurer has brought forward as the budget show that the accumulated debt of this province will be about $10 billion. Incredibly, yesterday the treasurer tabled legislation that would increase the borrowing levels to give him a cushion of $1.5 billion. That's the largest in Alberta's history. This a year before he says he's going to balance the budget. My first question to the minister is this: how can the treasurer ask us to approve a $1.4 billion debt cushion, especially when he says that next year he's going to balance the books? How can you do it?
Well, Mr. Speaker, you can see between the two socialist opposition parties that obviously two different kinds of analysis. In fact, what the member from Glengarry has confirmed is that we do have a cushion. Now, he should talk to the one from Meadowlark, and maybe they could compare notes, and they'd find out that, in fact, it is a cushion. I have to agree, there's a cushion there, Mr. Speaker. But it's a reasonable cushion because we need some additional money, Mr. Speaker, for the capital fund. Now, the capital fund, Mr. Speaker, is one of those important special capital funds wherein we invest in the education of health, hospitals in particular, in universities, in colleges, Mr. Speaker, these kinds of important capital projects which have a long-term benefit to Albertans, which maintain our priority in health and education, as we have always said in this House, which are paid off over a longer period of time. Now, that's what the capital fund does, Mr. Speaker, and I think those kinds of dollars are valuable. Now, we'll maintain our commitment, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the best facilities are put in place. Now, obviously, you have to have some cushion. You know that from time to time, the demands of cash flow vary considerably. You can't tell what's going to happen. We're not predicting a disaster as the opposition is, but there could be some unusual situation, Mr. Speaker, which could run us through. We don't think it's going to happen. We're on course with our balanced budget, I said, and I know both opposition parties heat to see success. They don't want to see a government that's doing what it says, performing as indicated, with a plan of action, Mr. Speaker. It's the plan as much as anything that upsets them, because they know we're on course. And that is very frustrating to them, because Albertans know we're on course as well, and they're going to support our government, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the provincial treasurer should feel great shame in taking this province to the highest debt load of its history, in its history. My second question to the minister is this: given that interest rates have gone up, given that oil revenues are going down and are projected to stay down for some time, and given that the Canadian dollar is not in particularly good shape, it's my belief that the minister knows something that he's not telling Albertans, and that is that the projected deficit and the projected accumulated debt of this province is much greater than we're being told. And I'd like to know what it is, the real facts.
Yes, Dick.
Well, Mr. Speaker, certainly this government has always said that debt is not our objective, and we have managed the economy, managed our position very effectively since 1986. Of course, if you have $1 of additional deficit moving from 1986 to today, of course, that's additional debt, and it's new to Alberta. It is new. Mr. Speaker, the other side of the question must be examined. When that oil price collapsed in 1986, and our revenues collapsed at the same rate, and we did not have predictability on our revenue side, obviously we had to smooth that by borrowing, by running a deficit if necessary, because Albertans have said to us two things: maintain the level of services, keep the lowest taxes possible in Canada for us, and get to a balanced budget as soon as possible. And that's exactly been our plan, Mr. Speaker. It's exactly been our plan. Now, the member from Glengarry talks about oil prices. Well, obviously, he knows nothing about the market at all. The market now in oil prices is trading about $19.60. The future market going out is trading well over $20 right now for WTI in U.S. currency, Mr. Speaker. Our view, as the Premier has called upon repeatedly, is for interest rates to go down and for the Canadian dollar to soften. Now, all of these variables are important. But what we did, Mr. Speaker, in the March budget is present the best information we had to us at the time. Nothing substantial has changed to change our view, Mr. Speaker. And Albertans and this government know that we're on course to a balanced budget by 91, 92. That's our commitment, that's our plan, and it's working, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Final Edmonton Glengarry.
Man selling siding.
Mr. Speaker, other provinces have felt the pinch, like Alberta felt the pinch during the recession, but they were able to do much better than the terrible debt that this minister has incurred for the province of Alberta. My last question to the minister is this. The minister has talked about giving speeches all over Alberta. Most of it's been flim-flam, talking about how deficits are going to be reduced to zero. And the minister hasn't talked about a plan to reduce the accumulated debt of $10 billion down to zero. I'd like to know what that plan is. Now.
Mr. Speaker, let me again remind Albertans that Alberta is the only province with more assets than liabilities. The only province, Mr. Speaker. I know that the opposition would like to see us have a very difficult position in the way some of the socialist-operated provinces across Canada have operated, but our province is the only province with more assets than liabilities. A very major feature of the strength of this province. Moreover, Mr. Speaker, we are the only province who eventually be able to retire their debt. Other provinces have simply said, well, we've got 20% of our budget is committed to debt retirement, so be it. We'll continue to roll the debt over. That's not our plan, Mr. Speaker. Our plan is to eventually reduce that debt. Everyone who knows anything about financial situations will suggest to you the first thing you do is balance your budget, then you get on with reducing debt, Mr. Speaker. Anyone who runs a household across Alberta understands that message, Mr. Speaker, and it's too bad that the member from Glengarry doesn't. We will reduce the debt eventually, Mr. Speaker. We will balance the budget as we committed, Mr. Speaker, and we're doing it with a plan which is reasonable, which is balanced, and which treats all sectors of our economy and all individuals equally, Mr. Speaker, and it's working. The economy is performing very well, Mr. Speaker. We'd like to see interest rates reduced, no question about it, because that would trigger a new round of investment in this province. But I think, Mr. Speaker, on balance, most Albertans will agree that the plan we have presented and the course of action we are on is reasonable and balanced and working, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary Fish Creek.
Mr. Speaker, in the city of Calgary last evening at a sellout dinner meeting attended by more than 900 Calgarians, the Premier's remarks on the Meech Lake Accord and the so-called companion resolution attracted considerable interest, particularly, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the House of Commons committee dealing with the so-called companion resolution. Now that the Commons committee report has been released, can the Premier advise the Assembly as to the process by which that report and its recommendations will be assessed by the Alberta government?
Mr. Speaker, it is true that there was a group of fine Albertans gathered in Calgary last night. We were able to talk, I was able to talk to them about our view of Canada, our view of a united Canada, our view of strong and equal provinces, our view of the potential and importance of Senate reform. And I must say, Mr. Speaker, there was heavy, strong endorsation of our position. Now, it is also true, Mr. Speaker, that today the House of Commons Committee has released its report. We have received a copy of it. I've asked the Minister of Federal and Intergovernmental Affairs to have his department do an assessment of it. They've taken some considerable period of time to come up with this report. It's on a very important issue, one that will be facing all of us as legislators, members of governments in the coming 37 days. And we are doing a full assessment of it. I will have a report. My initial reaction from discussing it with the Deputy Premier is that it does lay the groundwork for an early First Ministers' Conference. And I hope that we are able to get together as First Ministers to see whether we can heal the constitutional impasse that seems now to be hurting and potential to hurt even more this country of ours. I hope we can do it and hope we can do it as soon as possible.
Mr. Speaker, I recognize or appreciate that the Premier probably hasn't yet had an opportunity to personally review the document, the recommendations of that Commons Committee. But I do understand that there is at least one recommendation that has to do with the critical issue of Senate reform. And I wonder if the Premier would be in a position today to indicate what would be his minimum requirement or minimum expectation with respect to the Commons Committee's recommendation on Senate reform.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased, and I think all members of this Assembly would be pleased to know that across this country there's a sweeping movement towards Senate reform, a movement and a feeling how essential it is. I'm very pleased, and this Assembly should be pleased, because I think here is where that momentum started. And we've been fighting for Senate reform now until we've been able to convince Canadians all across the country. It's interesting, this morning I was talking to the Prime Minister, and he made the comment that Albertans should feel pleased that Senate reform is now the #1 issue in Canadian minds. Other than holding together a united Canada. And of course that falls right within the principles that we've been working for. I don't want, Mr. Speaker, to be taking positions prior to going into a First Minister's conference. I think those things should be said directly to my colleagues, the other First Ministers. But I do know this, that the Beach Lake Accord unlocks the door to Senate reform. And with the additional efforts that are being made by other First Ministers now, I think we can improve the situation even more, and I think we can put in place the attitude and the capacity for us to finally make the breakthrough of meaningful Senate reform.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the government stooped to using raunchy locker room humor to try to deflect serious public concerns about the state of environmental policy in the province of Alberta. Last winter, the Minister of the Environment set up a public task force, 2 from industry, 2 from government, 2 from the environment community, to set up new rules for environmental impact assessments. Unknown at that time to the volunteers and people who worked on that task force, the Premier set up his own task force, chaired by his Deputy Minister, Dr. Barry Mellon, who worked behind the back of the Environment Minister to prepare a different report in the direction of the Cabinet Committee on Economic Development. And of course that work was reflected in the first draft of the legislation tabled here a month ago. I wonder if the Premier would explain to Albertans why they should continue to work as hard as they do to provide input to this government when the power clique makes their own deals and makes their own decisions anyways.
Mr. Speaker, it's hard to dignify that lead into a question with a response. I think actually the honourable member might spend a little time in the locker room. Some people can straighten him out. In any event, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment is a very effective member of our cabinet. He is working together in a team with other members of our cabinet, and I'm sure this House will be pleased when the legislation that he has such a large influence on, and other members of our caucus and cabinet are also having great influence on, is presented here to the House for debate.
Well, this is not a locker room joke. You know, Albertans want an environment minister who makes policy. They don't want an environment minister to be a salesperson for decisions made by somebody else, and that's what you've made him. And I would like the Premier, since he's now trying to pawn off the Minister of Energy as some kind of a neutral chairperson who's going to referee this thing, the Minister of Energy has had plenty to say about environmental assessments. He thinks environmental assessment is creating chaos for business. It's threatening major projects. How can the Premier pawn his Energy Minister off as a neutral chairperson when he has indicated from his own mouth he wants the bad old days when governments cut deals and sacrifice the environment?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if there is a joke here, it's the member for Jasper Place. And if we're talking about locker rooms, let's send the guy to the showers for that. Mr. Speaker, it is disappointing when the honourable member can't sell his point of view in terms of policy questions, but rather has to try and deal with personal attacks on one member or another in this Assembly. It's a shame. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. Now, we are going to be able to bring a piece of legislation before this legislature. It'll be a well-thought-out, reasoned piece of legislation. It'll play an important role in the future development of this province. And I urge members to bring their thoughts and their arguments to focus on the legislation when it's here. But please, don't provide that kind of personal attacks. Deal with the policies.
That's right.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, it's long been a suspicion that the Minister of Environment was put in that particular position because of his prowess with public relations. Now, after seeing the minister kept in the dark on the Yakopuri decision, excluded from the critical meeting with ALPAC officials, undercut in his position on the ALPAC review panel recommendations, and just recently being relieved of his responsibility for the Natural Resources Conservation Board legislation, it's no longer a suspicion, it is a proven fact. My question is to the Premier. How can the Premier claim any priority on environmental policy when every time his Minister of the Environment gets close to doing something significant and substantive for the environment, he guts the very authority that that minister requires to do the job?
Mr. Speaker, in a way, I guess, the two of them have had the same researcher working on the same subject, because they've just repeated again the question from the member for Jasper Place, although I must say he presented it in a more credible manner than the member for Jasper Place.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment is a valued, effective, and respected member of this Assembly, of our caucus and our cabinet. He is playing an important role in the future development of this province. He has the strongest legislation in Canada. He is improving it even more. And the members will see that as we proceed through the debate of the legislation they talk about, the fact that the Honourable Minister of Environment has had a major role in the development of that legislation.
Keeps complimenting me like this, Mr. Speaker. Pretty soon he'll be calling me his good friend. That's good. With the Minister of Environment's authority consistently eviscerated by this Premier, by this Cabinet, why would we believe for 1 minute that the Minister of the Environment will be able to deliver on important environmental policy promises like his Omnibus Environmental Protection Act, his conservation strategy, and his waste reduction and recycling policy promise?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm perfectly prepared to call him my friend. Yeah. No problem at all. He's not as attractive as the member for Gold Bar, but on Paul. Mr. Speaker, the members, of course, starting from a false premise. The Natural Resources Conservation Board is not just an environmental bill. Obviously, it is. Just by its very title, it is not just an environmental bill. As we've always said, just the same way that the Energy Resources Conservation Board is operated with great respect and effectiveness in this province, and the Natural Resources Conservation Board, which will be mirrored upon and adapted to the same kind of operation as the Energy Resources Conservation Board, will be able to present a balanced place. You aren't for the environment or for development. Surely that's not going to be the answer in our province or in our country. Surely it's going to be working together with a balanced view and how to make sure that we're able to develop our resources, so important that they be developed, our natural resources and our energy resources, that they be developed in the best way possible for the people of Alberta, and yet make sure that they're compatible with sound environmental protection. That's the role, and that's what we're going to do.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Honourable Minister of Career Development and Employment. I understand that the unemployment rate in Alberta is now the third lowest in Canada at 6.5%. Mr. Speaker, we are not as fortunate in some parts of Alberta. The constituency of Athabasca-Lac-La-Bis, the unemployment rate continues unacceptably high in that area. In fact, pockets of areas, 80 and 90%. Mr. Speaker, welfare and poverty, Mr. Speaker, hundreds of people unemployed. And thanks to the official opposition and the Liberals, they fight the industries every day here. Their economic policies are close down the industries in the north, increase social assistance, hire more social workers. What a policy. No wonder they don't elect you guys up there.
Now the question.
My question to the Honourable Minister is, the Honourable Minister, I would like you to explain why there are such regional disparities in our province in relation to the unemployment in Alberta.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure where there was going to be a question rather than a statement. I'm also pleased that the honourable member for Athabasca was able to correctly respond to the unemployment level being the third lowest in Canada, and that isn't a correction to the Honourable Treasurer. I'm sure that he was just alluding to or stating from the crystal ball that I'm sure he looks at many occasions what may be happening down the future. But in particular, I'm pleased to report to the Honourable Member and to all members of the Assembly that yes, we have significant gains, some 40,000 more working this time than we did last year. While there's some 7,000 more people going into the workforce, we do have some 4,000 extra working. So all in all, at a 6.3 level, I think that's very significant. And while we are the third lowest, we're certainly striving to continue. But more directly to the question as it relates to the northeastern sector, please remember to the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, that we make reference to statistics as a region. And the northeastern region in particular has shown significant gains in this last while. And while at this time last year, I think if you'd refer to the statistics, would find they were about 10.2, and today at this time comparison we're 7% even. So we've had a significant drop in levels of 3.2%. Now please as well keep in mind at this particular time to the honourable member that there are more people coming in and looking for work. And we would see and hopefully see that as the months progress, in particular summer periods, that figure as well would drop to a more accurate level and reflect the overall picture in Alberta.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary question is to the Honourable Minister of Family and Social Services. A number of times I've introduced new initiatives and discussed new initiatives in this House in relation to the delivery system of the welfare program that would reduce the caseloads for social workers and put more of our welfare people back to work as long as there's jobs. I would like a commitment from the Minister today. When will these new initiatives be introduced?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the member knows that the Minister is committed to social reform in this province, and I've had the opportunity of looking at some of the innovative concepts that they've introduced in that member's constituency, and particularly as it relates to Calling Lake. The member has invited me to join with them at Calling Lake and see firsthand, and I've accepted that invitation, and I look forward to visiting it with the member. And I can only say that it's those kinds of innovative steps that we need to be looking at and considering as we progress along with our social reform.
Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Attorney General. In the wake of a recent precedent-setting Supreme Court decision which recognized the seriousness of the battered wife syndrome, it is outrageous that we have an Alberta judge and defense lawyer minimizing the rape of a wife by stating that such a rape is not as traumatic as the rape of a stranger. It is clear that they fail to understand rape as an act of violence involving anger and coming from a mentality that regards women as property. To the Attorney General, given that we wonder how widespread this lack of understanding is in the court system, will the Attorney General establish a task force to look into all aspects of gender unfairness in the courts?
The chair cautions the member for Avonmore to pull out Beauchesne and look at 493 with respect to the comments made in the preamble. Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member made reference to a judge and to a lawyer, and I'd like to point out that the judiciary is independent of this assembly, and if she has a particular complaint about a particular judge, she should take that up with the chief judge, not the Attorney General. If the lawyer she's referring to happens to be a prosecutor that would be in the employ of the province, I'd be more than happy to have the details that she may have. If it's a lawyer that's in private practice, she should direct her complaints to the Law Society and have them look into it. It is unfortunate at any time that anyone takes disparaging views in the sense of what rape and its effects on our society, and to belittle it. And I would look forward to her communications in that regard.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I was addressing the need to look into what I expect is a systemic bias. And the request was for a task force to determine the extent of that bias, recognizing that in the U.S. such task forces have been effective vehicles to educate the judiciary, the legal profession, and the public about that bias.
So you like task forces?
Another recent case in which a police officer... Well, Mr. Speaker, would the Attorney General provide the necessary funding for the development of educational materials to be made available to judges and lawyers and incorporate in law school curricula, as well as provide funding for professional development workshops so we can address this bias once we've determined the extent of it?
Mr. Speaker, the short answer is no. That is not my jurisdiction. The training of lawyers is under the aegis of my colleague, the Honourable Minister of Advanced Education. Today, I am, in fact, right after question period, going to a conference which has been going on all week that is, in fact, got gender bias as part of the curricula in the Western Canada Judge Education Seminar. I will be sure to take the members' concerns to them when I am speaking them this evening.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Solicitor General is on record as stating that the job action by correctional officers is well in hand, can go on comfortably for some period of time, and is saving the province some money. Mr. Speaker, my information is a bit different. RCMP officers are working full shifts in prisons in addition to their regular policing duties, which is making for much longer work week for many officers. They're getting burned out and they're stressed out. Given the approach of the long weekend and all the added duties that will accompany the long weekend, which can be expected that relate to increased drinking, can the Solicitor General assure Albertans that public safety will not be jeopardized this weekend by the deployment of overworked RCMP officers?
I have no indications or any reports from my department that RCMP officers are being burned out, stressed out, put out, or anything else, Mr. Speaker, and I am pleased to be able to assure the people of Alberta that policing services will be provided this weekend as they have every other weekend, holiday or otherwise, in this province.
Mr. Speaker, not all is well, Mr. Speaker, because I've had reports of increased drug use in the prisons, inmates fighting and they requiring hospitalization, unhygienic conditions inside the remand center, and a drug overdose that also required hospitalization. So, the question may very well be, will the Solicitor General recognize the serious state of affairs that's going on and relieve these overworked RCMP officers and stop misleading Albertans that everything is under control and deal with the workers' concerns so that this strike can be over with as soon as possible?
I wish with all my heart, Mr. Premier, that certain people, certain organizations in this province would stop aiding and abetting what is in fact an illegal act. Right. And I tell you, Mr. Speaker, and I tell the people of Alberta, I as a Solicitor General solely responsible as a government minister for all of the prisons, have not had one report on the allegations just indicated by the member.
Right. Calgary McKnight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of 29 institutions with a $1 billion budget. The Minister of Advanced Education has placed Alberta post-secondary institutions in a catch-22 situation. In order to maintain quality, the institutions have been forced to compromise on accessibility by reducing timetables, cutting sections, and capping enrollments. When talking about program cuts, however, the Minister has told this Assembly that the boards of governors are responsible for setting their own priorities. Yet at the same time, he has stated publicly that the institutions must have his approval to cut programs. My question to the Minister is, does the Minister stick by his own words that if a program is going to be reduced, he has to be consulted? Words which show that, in fact, he is the final arbitrator in decisions of program reductions.
Mr. Speaker, we believe it's only fair when an Albertan enrolls in a program of study which we define to be a degree-granting program, having paid their tuition fee, that their expectation of being able to obtain a degree should be realized and should not be arbitrarily reduced at the whim of one of the post-secondary institutions. So, Mr. Speaker, in Bill 27, that's exactly the matter that's addressed.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister has put the boards in an untenable situation. Will he finally admit that it's his funding policy which is forcing boards of governors and university and post-secondary institution administrators to cut programs, and this is creating despair, frustration, and anxiety?
Mr. Speaker, it's the honourable member and the honourable member's party that in the past has quoted the so-called lack of funding to Alberta post-secondary institutions relative to other jurisdictions. If I'm not mistaken, in the past, the University of British Columbia has been mentioned. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to note not the expenditures of an institution, but its revenue. And if one looks at the latest information available, and UBC is often quoted, then the grant from this government to the U of A, again as the university quoted, was some $8,500, and UBC was some $8,290. It seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that the taxpayer of this province has done their part through this government to see that the funding of the institutions is there. The expenditure side of the institutions, Mr. Speaker, with all fairness, is up to the Board of Governors of that institution. So I think the honourable member, frankly, should research her facts in a different way or from a different institution.
Chair is concerned that the preamble and questions by the member for Edmonton-Avonmore were indeed a breach of order of the House. I would therefore read into the record Beauchesne 493, subsection 1. All references to judges and courts of justice of the nature of personal attack and censure have always been considered unparliamentary, and the Speaker has always treated them as breaches of order. And in that respect, the Chair then invites the member for Edmonton-Avonmore to stand and make it absolutely clear that the member was dealing with the broad issue and was not making an attack upon a certain judge. Please.
Mr. Speaker, that is in fact the case. I was looking at the broad issue of gender bias in the courts.
Thank you, honourable member. Point of order, Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to raise on a point of order under Standing Order 23, subsection I, and Mr. Speaker, may I quote subsection I, which in brief says that that there has been that the member has imputed false or unavowed motives to another member. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to point out to the honourable member with regard to his comments that the Minister of Energy is against environmental assessment. And I would like to present my case to you and members, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, it is a clear case that the honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place is misleading this assembly, and I noticed that he was misleading the public outside the House, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to point out that on a number of occasions, I have expressed my support for the environmental assessment process in this country. And on a number of occasions, Mr. Speaker, firstly, with the in Kananaskis with the energy ministers from across Canada on April 2nd. I indicated to them that I did support environmental assessment, and in fact, we were concerned about the duplication of process. That was repeated in a speech to IPAC on March 29th, Mr. Speaker, and on public television, Mr. Speaker, in the city of Calgary. I would like to quote inside this House, Mr. Speaker, that in fact I do support environmental assessment. We just do not support the duplication of the process. And for the honourable member to suggest that that is not the case, I would refer him to Monday, April 23rd, the estimates of my department, wherein I indicated that in fact we support environmental assessment process in this country. It is the duplication of the process we do not support, and that is what we are faced with under current federal legislation.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Edmonton Jasper Place speaking briefly to the point of order.
Sir, on the point of order, this is indeed an interesting process whereby the minister gets up under an alleged point of order and uses all kinds of unparliamentary language and makes all kinds of allegations against another member of this assembly. It's indeed an intriguing use of the rules of the assembly for him to get up and do that. But I do draw to the chair's attention under Beauchesne 489 to refer to a member as having misled the assembly is unparliamentary language. And I don't know what gives that minister the right to stand up here and use unparliamentary language in the course of a point of order, which is supposed to be a device that we use to maintain the order and decorum in this assembly. And Mr. Speaker, as to the substance of the member's allegation that I have imputed false or unavowed motives, all I did was read his press cuttings in the Legislative Assembly. That's all I did. Now, if he chooses to interpret that as meaning that he is against environmental assessments or that he's against some other such thing, perhaps he has some discussion to do with himself and some of the people he talks to in the news media. But what he said in Kananaskis and again in Edmonton was that environmental assessments are creating chaos for business, and he said that the assessment process was threatening major projects in the province of Alberta. That's the view that he stated, and that does indicate a bias of sorts, certainly a strong opinion about a matter which is to come before the Assembly. And I was attempting to deal with the fact that this minister has been presented by the Premier and others in the government as being some kind of a neutral chairperson who's going to referee a dispute among the warring factions within the government, as if government was a question of stakeholders getting together under the umbrella of a neutral chairperson and fighting it out as in a boxing ring. But I suggest that the minister has been indeed quite unruly to stand up here today under an alleged point of order, which is not a point of order, and to use that to make unparliamentary attacks on my character. And I would like a ruling on that.
Forgive me, Honourable Member, let's not bother with that. The chair is always interested, if not somewhat bemused, that one part of the House one day argues that it's okay to use one set of words, and then the next day gets upset when the same sets of words are used in return. With respect to the use of the word misleading and deliberately misleading, if indeed there we have to do a check to the blues, but in actual fact, as all members know, especially the two persons involved in this difference of opinion, Beauchesne 489 rules it to be unparliamentary to be deliberately misleading, to deliberately misled, deliberately distort, and so forth. Whereas then 490 says it's okay, folks, to go ahead and say misleading. And this is the same difficulty with respect to number of words, and it also may depend on the temperature of the House and the fervor of the way various phrases are being hurled about. The chair understands that in terms of question period and preamble, trying to make a point, that sometimes one overstates the case and it indeed comes forth as being your personal opinion as to what a minister may or may not have said or believes or so forth. Nevertheless, it's up to each individual member within their own conscience to be responsible for what they believe and what they say. And therefore, the chair also understands why the Minister of Energy leapt to his feet to engage in the alleged point of order. So the chair regards this as being in dispute as to interpretation between the two honorable members. Orders of the day. May we revert to the introduction of special guests?